Just 6 years ago, Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman was the Democratic Party's nominee for Vice President of the United States of America. Now he's in the political fight of his life just to keep his seat in the United States Senate. And many Democrats, including his former running mate Al Gore, won't lift a finger to help him. David Brody explains why.
Breaking up is always hard to do. Just ask Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. Or Elizabeth Taylor. She knows a thing or two. Politically, Democratic Senator Joe Lieberman may be on the verge of a painful departure from the Democratic Party. It was just 6 short years ago that he was the party's vice presidential nominee. He even tried for the Democratic nomination for president in 2004. But oh, how times have changed.
And Senator Lieberman, if you won't challenge President Bush and his failed agenda, I will.
For the first time in his 18-year Senate career, Lieberman is facing a serious challenge, and it's coming not in the general election, but in the Democratic primary from newcomer Democrat Ned Lamont. Lamont is anti-war and anti-everything President Bush. Lieberman supports the president on the Iraq War. His position isn't helping him. 63% of Connecticut voters thought going to war was wrong, and 83% of Connecticut Democrats are against it.
I know I've taken a position on the war in Iraq that's not popular with a lot of Democrats, but, I've done it clearly not as a matter of politics, but a matter of principle, because I thought it was right for the country.
Perhaps no image has haunted Lieberman more than what happened at the President's State of the Union speech in 2005. It became known as the kiss. Bush giving Lieberman a supportive hug and what seemed like a peck on the cheek. The left-wing blogosphere went into overdrive. All of a sudden, there were websites like dumpjoe.com and kissjoegoodbye.com. There was even a kiss float made by bloggers in the Wilmantic, Connecticut 4th of July parade. Lieberman has tried to distance himself from George Bush.
I've worked against George Bush. I've even run against George Bush. But, Ned, I'm not George Bush.
I think that Joe Lieberman has essentially lost his soul.
Kelly Monahan runs what is considered the most popular liberal blog site in Connecticut.
There are a lot of people in the Democratic Party who have felt for a long time that Joe Lieberman has abandoned the party.
Here's a look at the dissatisfaction timeline. In 1994, Lieberman didn't support President Clinton's universal health care plan. In 1998, Lieberman was the first Democrat to criticize Bill Clinton publicly over the Monica Lewinsky scandal. In 2003, he backed the war effort. In 2005, he supported Condoleezza Rice, Bush's choice for Secretary of State. Also that year, he voted for Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. Just recently, in 2006, he wouldn't support a potential Democratic filibuster against Judge Samuel Alito. Like a lot of Connecticut liberals, Lamont sees all of this as too cozy a relationship with the president.
I think Democrats are going to come to this campaign. They're going to want somebody who stands up with the Democratic Party, willing to challenge President Bush.
In fact, some longtime Lieberman supporters, like former Democratic State Party Chairman George Jepsen, now backs Ned Lamont.
Supporting Ned Lamont was not an easy decision for me, but I just flatly disagree with Joe on a number of issues of conscience.
On the internet, Lamont supporters are posting pictures showing him as Benedict Lieberman or the president's puppet, even his lapdog.
When the Republicans need somebody to make an issue that no other Democrat will go along with, bipartisan, they go to Joe Lieberman. And he carries their water every single time.
What my opponent is saying, and some of the hotheads that support him, is that if you're not 100%, you're not with us, you're not with us. When any political party begins to apply that kind of test, I think it's on the way to being a minority party.
Yet Lieberman may be on his way out of the Democratic Party. Lamont is gaining ground quickly.
He's just moving, and it seems to not stop. There's nothing that's impeding him.
In January, Lieberman's lead among Democrats was a healthy 30 points, 59 to 29%. 5 months later in June, that lead has been cut in half, 55 to 40%. Some polls have it even closer. Compounding problems for Lieberman is that the primary is in the summer heat of August, where the really motivated voters go to the polls. And this year, those motivated voters are likely to be angry Democrats. Lieberman isn't taking any chances. He says he'll run as an independent if he loses the Democratic primary. That announcement may hurt Lieberman's chances with the party even more.
I expect Lamont to win the primary, the Democratic primary.
The state of Connecticut has a very interesting voter breakdown. Yes, there are more Democrats here than Republicans. However, the independent, unaffiliated voter outnumbers both the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's those independents that Joe Lieberman is counting on. Lieberman and most pollsters believe that if he loses the primary but runs in the general election as an independent, then in a three-way race, Lieberman wins.
There are more Republicans and independents that are planning to vote for Joe Lieberman than Democrats.
Lamont's camp isn't convinced that leaving the Democratic Party will be the winning ticket.
That people are going to really see him as a career politician, much more interested in protecting his own status than really representing the interests of Connecticut and following the rules.
Lieberman tries to convince anyone who will listen that he's a reliable Democrat. Our research shows the liberal ACLU gives him a pretty high 71% rating. Well-known liberal Senator Charles Schumer of New York also is at 71%. Neither are as high as Ted Kennedy, who clocks in at 86%.
Yes, I'm loyal to the Democratic Party, but I have a higher loyalty. When I take the oath of office, put my hand on the Bible, and raise my right hand, I swear my loyalty to the Constitution, to the country.
And he swears by this war. The Democratic Party is clearly going through what you might call a political midlife crisis. Years ago, Democrats, led by FDR, Truman, and Senator Scoop Jackson, gave the Democrats a strong reputation on matters of war and national defense. Now, many political observers see the party controlled by the anti-war left wing of the party. Lieberman may be a dying breed, and despite the unpopularity of the Iraq War, that position could still mean trouble for the Democrats with voters in general elections.
What you're seeing is a struggle for the Democratic identity. Is the Iraq War going to define the November election? And I think what you're seeing is the Democratic Party apparatus saying yes, they want it to, but then it's also taking down one of their veterans.
So Lieberman is left without the endorsements of anti-war Democrats like John Kerry and his former running mate Al Gore. Hillary Clinton says if Lieberman loses the primary, she'll back Lamont, not Lieberman.
Neither party benefits if you start to put people out of it who you don't agree with 100% of the time. Obviously, people have a right to disagree with me on the war, and if they feel in the Democratic Party that that's the only issue they care about, well, that's their right to vote against me. But I think it would be making a bad statement about what our party is all about.
The beneficiary in all of this, at least in August, very well could be newcomer Ned Lamont. Meanwhile, we're left with images of Joe Lieberman at the State of the Union. Lieberman stands to applaud the president while the rest of his colleagues sit on their hands. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that picture could decide Joe Lieberman's fate in a few weeks and send a message to the country about the state of the Democratic Party. David Brody, CBN News, Hartford, Connecticut.
Thanks, David. Very interesting. Joe Lieberman has been more of a traditional Democrat. In the old days, the Democrats were interested in the United States, in America. They weren't, the slaves to any far-out ideology. The polarization of parties in this country is a very disturbing thing, that, the Republican would be pushed to what would be considered far right and the Democrats to the far left, and they have no common middle ground. We're supposed to represent America. We're supposed to represent all the people. People in office are supposed to represent all the people. And when Senator Lieberman says when he swears the oath, he swears to uphold the Constitution, not to uphold the Democratic Party. And the same thing with Republicans. This party spirit is deadly But I might say, and I'm not endorsing anybody in one campaign or the other, but when I was getting ready to have prostate surgery, I was on the way to the hospital down in Florida. There was a long-distance call on the cell phone, and it was Senator Lieberman wishing me well in my surgery. He's you know, basically a very nice guy, but you know, I don't know what the Democrats in Connecticut are going to do with him. But in any event, that's their call. But it would be a tragedy, Terry, if these parties get so polarized that there's no common ground and nothing will get done except fight.
Well, that polarization is what makes election years so painful.
Oh,
I think the American public's fed up with it.
Well, I think they are too. They're getting sick of it, and I certainly am. What's next?
Well, in a